McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawn Shop, Season 3, Episode 9. The Plague Mask Speaks. October 15th, 1921. Continued. Oh, diary. I turned green, from head to foot. Here we were, scared out of our wits anyway, because we were in the Whiskelit world. To make matters worse, we'd just found a cadaver that looked like Hester Rathbone. The man Rath was, before he entered the train car and went mad. And then, to make everything truly hellish, as we were about to take Hester Rathbone the cadaver into a Whiskelit house, a thing with a plague mask opened the door. My heart stopped. It really did. I stared into those glassy, huge eyes, and I felt sure the Whiskelit was about to murder us all. I felt the group around me freeze in terror. Octavia audibly gasped. But then, my pulse resumed. The lights were still lit. How could this be a Whiskelit? They arrived in the dark, and when they did, the lights went a corpsey green. The lights here were still warm and yellow. Just as I realized this, the plague mask creature pulled off its mask, and I found myself staring at the rumpled hair of Rath. "Oh, hello, Maud," he said. "Rath!" I cried. "Yes," Rath said. "Hello. Do come in, won't you?" He reached out and shook my hand. Then his eyes swept the group. "And you've brought friends! Why did you bring friends, Maud?" Just then, Rath's eyes alighted on his doppelganger. He turned very pale. He dropped the plague mask on the floor, and then, as though we'd offended him, he marched off and disappeared up a staircase. "Well," Scotland said, after an awkward pause, "we found Rath. Bully for us. Let's take a look at the cadaver and then get the hell out of here." The rest of them herded the cadaver into the living room, and Scotland popped open her medical bag. I heard her say, "Ah!" Instead of joining the others, however, I walked to the foot of the stairs and stared up them. I wondered what Rath had been doing with that plague mask. He'd been playing with it. Had he murdered a Whiskelit and taken its mask? Had he found a large box of masks unattended? Or had the Whiskelits given it to him as some kind of gift? "Rath," I called softly. "You should go after him, Maud," Noble said. Noble stood with his back to the front door, hands spread across the wood, as though he'd keep the Whiskelits out by force. I nodded. Rath must be scared to death, seeing his doppelganger like that. Besides, we wanted him on our side. I needed to see if he was willing to leave the Whiskelit cave forever, or if he was developing a penchant for saying, "Death to all mice!" Rah! And just as I'd put my first foot up on the stairs, I heard Ariana say, "There's something that I want to check outside. Octavia, will you come with me?" I could feel the room freeze, go a little awkward. No one trusted Ariana completely, but no one wanted to be blunt enough to say, "Why the hell do you want to go back out there?" Why me?" Octavia said timidly. "Well, I'd go alone," Ariana said, "but since you all seem to want to keep an eye on me, I thought I'd ask someone to go. Maud and Scotland are both busy, and I figure Noble needs to stay in case the cadaver wants to start moving." So far, the Hester Rathbone doppelganger was sitting perfectly still, letting Scotland poke around in his mouth with a swab. "Why do you want to go at all?" Noble said. "I saw something out there, on the ground, when we were walking past singing. I thought I was imagining things at the time, but the more I think about it, I want to go back and check." "What do you think you saw?" Noble said. "Well," Ariana said, I thought I saw a severed human hand." I felt my stomach turn. Octavia winced and said, "Ick." "And I want to see what it really was," Ariana said. "If it was a hand, it would be some kind of clue, wouldn't it?" I glanced at Noble. "I do kind of want to know if there's a disembodied hand out there. It would mean something. I don't know what it would mean, but it would mean something." "How far away was it?" Octavia said to Ariana. "How long do you think it will take to get there?" "About 5 minutes," Ariana said. "I remember how to get back there. We just have to look and see if it really existed." "All right, I'll go," Octavia said. "Everybody get your murder objects ready. I want to get out of here the moment we get back." Noble and I exchanged a glance. He, of course, would not be coming back with us. The more I thought about plague masks and severed hands, the less I thought I should let him hide here. We'll be back in a jiff," Ariana said. The two of them linked arms and headed back into the Whiskelet world. When I glanced back at Scotland and the cadaver, I noticed that Scotland's hands were shaking. "Scotland," I said, "are you all right?" "I've just got a bad feeling," Scotland said. "Go on upstairs and talk to Wrath." I left Scotland and Noble downstairs and climbed the staircase. I had a bad feeling too. Scotland's hands were shaking and my stomach was shaking. It was probably the mention of the severed hand, but I couldn't help feeling like we were walking into a trap. I found Wrath at the top of the stairs. The room was incredibly small, circular, only about 8 feet in diameter. A small bed was tucked against the wall, and Wrath sat on it, staring out the window. His hands dangled. He looked dejected. "Why did you bring that thing in here?" he said. I moved closer, like someone trying not to startle a bird. "Do you know what that thing is?" I said. He looked over his shoulder at me. "Know what it is? It's me. It's me before I went into that thing." I sat beside him on the bed. "I know Wrath," I said. "At least, I know that it looks like you. We don't know where it came from. Do you know where it came from?" He snorted. "No. Don't know the damnedest thing about it, except that it looks like me." "So you've never seen anything like it before," I said. "Never," Wrath said. "I assumed the Whiskelets made it. Didn't they? Didn't they make it to remind me that I used to be whole once, and now I'm not, and I might as well join them?" I held out my hand. Wrath took it. It was funny how I could feel so much empathy for him, so much kindness. This man had murdered people in front of me. He'd nearly killed me. But I felt that he wasn't gone completely. Whatever had taken hold of him hadn't destroyed him yet. The man I'd met in Mara's living room had been worth saving. All people were worth saving. Still, I thought it strange that I could care about him so much, considering what he'd done. "Wrath, you're going to be all right," I said. He snorted. He looked sullenly away from me. "I'm going to become a Whiskelet," he said. "Oh." "Do you want to become a Whiskelet?" I said. "No," he said, "but I'm stuck here, aren't I?" "Wrath," I said, "let's just pretend that I can get you out of here." Wrath, in his insanity, clearly hadn't noticed that I'd left and then come back with friends. He hadn't put things together. "Let's pretend you can leave. Whenever you want. Would you do it if you could?" He looked at me, his one human eye wide. But they'd never let go. They'd keep looking for me, always. Ooh, what a horrible thought. Whiskelets coming after us wherever we tried to hide Wrath, like plague-mass ghosts floating through the walls. "Wrath," I said, "I don't think they'd make you join against your will. When I overheard them earlier, they were fighting. They aren't even agreed as to whether they want you to join." "You overheard them earlier?" Wrath said, surprised. "Yes," I said. That brought up another question. "Did they come after you? Ask you about me? They didn't hurt you at all, did they?" Wrath shook his head. "No, they want me to like them. They didn't mention a thing." "All right then," I said. "Wrath, we can leave. I figured out a way to do it. If you come downstairs, as soon as Ariana and Octavia are back, we can get out of here." Wrath stood up. He opened and shut his mouth so fast it made popping noises. "We can leave," he said. "Oh, Maud, I wish I'd never come to this dreadful godforsaken fishbowl." I refrained from asking Wrath where the fish were. "Yes, we can leave," I said. "Come on downstairs. And I really do think the Whiskelets will leave you alone. They thought you summoned them in the first place. Once you leave, well, I doubt they want an unwilling member." "We shall see," Wrath said, in a hollow voice. Wrath and I got up and went down the staircase. When we entered the living room, Noble was still by the door. Scotland was packing up her medical bag, and the cadaver was still sitting there, expressionless. Wrath looked at it and shuddered. "They're not back yet?" I said. "No, not yet," Noble said. "We may as well get the murder objects out now," Scotland said. "Get ready for departure, as they say." We began to putter around, lay the murder objects out on the table. Wrath stood in the corner of the room like he was afraid his doppelganger would bite him. After we'd been waiting another few minutes, a frantic knock sounded on the door. Scotland and I glanced at each other. The knock was so urgent. "Maybe they're just spooked," Scotland said. "They think it's creepy out there, and they want to get back inside. Or maybe they'd found a severed hand. Or maybe the Whiskalets were coming. Well, if the Whiskalets were, we still had time to teleport out of here. We were fine. Noble whisked open the door. Octavia stood there. Her face was screwed up. She looked like she might cry. "Ariana's gone," she said. Her voice sounded funny. "She's gone. She ran off." "What?" Noble exclaimed. "She ran off," Octavia said, "and she didn't take my murder object. I checked my pocket. I don't know what she wants. I don't know what she's trying to do." Ariana was gone. Ariana was gone. Why would she do that? "We have to go after her," Noble said. "No," Octavia said. "I chased her for 3 minutes. She was faster than me. She got away. She left the district. She took one of the tunnels, and I don't remember which one. It would take days to find her. Days." I suddenly found myself sitting on the ground. My head rang. I felt like I might be sick. "She tricked you," I said. "She ran off on purpose. She went outside with you just to trick us." Octavia shook her head. "I don't think so. I mean, she might have. She might have known we wouldn't have let her go alone. But I think maybe she just got scared." I shook my head. That didn't make sense. Ariana didn't get scared. She was the most logical, clear-headed person I knew. If she'd run off, it was a plan. "We have to go after her," I said. "What did I just tell you?" Octavia said. "We may never see her again. We should just go home." Octavia must have been scared to tears. "Octavia, we can't. You know we can't," I said. "It's all right," Noble said. "You should go back. All of you. I'll stay behind, and I'll look for Ariana." "Noble," I said. "Maud, it's all right," Noble said. "This will give me something to do, and it will help, knowing that there's another human being here. I will find her, I will calm her down, and both of us will return to the pawn shop's secret basement when I do. It's going to be fine." "Oh, Noble," I said. I didn't want to leave her here, alone in this terrible place. What was she thinking? This didn't make sense. It did not make sense. Why would Ariana run off when she had no hope of getting out? Did she know something I didn't know? Or had she just panicked? Had she decided she'd rather be here, free, than imprisoned in the pawn shop? Something was wrong. And I was dreading, realizing what was really going on. "You're sure she had no murder object?" I said. We counted. We laid the murder objects out on the table, as well as the bottles of magic jelly. Ariana had nothing. Fear drummed in the pit of my stomach. I felt like this was an evil omen. "Go back, Maud," Noble said. "Go back. Scotland, Octavia, take the cadaver with you, if you can." He turned to Wrath, who was still silent in the corner. "Hester, you go too. We need to get you out of here, fast, assuming you're willing to go." Wrath licked his lips. "Don't stay here," he said to Noble. "Don't." Noble shook his head. "I'm going to." "They'll find you," Wrath hissed. I felt a chill. "We're going home," I said. "Noble, find Ariana. As soon as I get back to the pawn shop, I'm going to start working on your problem. Raster was able to track you somehow, but I'm going to find out how he did it and put a stop to it. I'm going to try to undo it with a wish, of course, but I'm also going to find out exactly what he did, so I'm certain it's undone. Then I'm going to come back and find you. You'll be able to come back soon. Everything will be fine." Wrath shook his head. "You're going to come back and find him? You'll never find each other again. Don't you know how large this place is? You will never find each other again." I felt cold to the marrow of my bones. Should I be saying goodbye? Would I never see him again as long as I lived? Ariana, either? "Noble, come back to the pawn shop in a week, if I haven't come for you," I said. "I will," he said. Things felt muffled after that. We hurried. Scotland held onto the cadaver to see if she could take it with her. We all teleported into separate murder objects to avoid crowding, but Wrath came with me. I didn't trust him not to run off. We both teleported, and we found ourselves in a beautiful, sunny, butterfly-filled meadow with a dead man at our feet. The murderer stood a few paces away, holding a bloody knife. I cried. The murderer turned white as a sheet. I think he thought he was seeing ghosts, or demons, or witches appear out of thin air to punish him. I'm sure Wrath's puppet eyeball didn't help. The murderer screamed and ran away. I'm sure penance was hot in his bloodstream, but it was too late. The dead man was a mass of blood. The blades of grass were flecked with it. I knelt in front of the dead man, rolled him over to check his wounds. "Oh, Maud, for heaven's sake," Wrath said. "This is a murder object. It's not a someone felt ill object. That man is dead. If he wasn't dead, we wouldn't be here. The object wouldn't have power if he hadn't died." I felt shaken. I still wanted to check his pulse and scream bloody murder, but I knew Wrath was right. This was over, for him. I got shakily to my feet. Judging by the man's clothes, this murder had happened almost 1,000 years ago. It would have been ancient history if I didn't have blood under my fingernails. "We saw the murderer," I cried. Wrath grabbed me by the elbow and towed me to a line of trees. "Yes, yes," Wrath said, "and he had a very bloody knife." "But we saw the murderer," I said. "That doesn't usually happen." "Yes, well, sometimes it does," Wrath said. "You never know with murder objects. They bring you within half an hour of when the victim died. Looks like this time we got lucky. We got here about 4 seconds after the fact." "Oh, Wrath," I said. "Oh, Maud, stop crying," Wrath said. "The man's already dead." Wrath led me over to the tree line and then sat down next to a stone. "What are you waiting for?" he said. "Draw the symbol." I opened my mouth and then shut it again. I knelt and drew a symbol of an eye in magic jelly. Wrath and I touched it together, and then we teleported to the lobby of McGillicuddy and Murder's pawn shop. He was taken to the same place as me, since I had drawn the symbol myself, and I controlled the destination. We arrived within a few seconds of Octavia and Scotland and the doppelganger. For a moment, I found myself looking around for Noble and Ariana, then shivered. They were not coming back, at least not today. The doppelganger looked around, sniffed, and then vanished. "Ah," Scotland said. "The doppelganger didn't want to come to prison, I see." "Glad to be rid of it," Wrath said. The 4 of us climbed the stairs and approached the nail in the wall, the murder object that would lead us down into the secret basement of McGillicuddy and Murders. I suddenly found myself wondering if we shouldn't have drawn the symbol to lead us straight into the secret basement. Was that possible, jumping from one time to another time? Anyway, we were here now. I remembered Mr. McGillicuddy's warning then, that we all should have stayed quarantined and hidden inside the base, in case the night enthusiasts were watching. What if one was behind a coat rack right now, licking their chops and hoping to follow us down into the secret lair? "Let's look around," I said, when we were about 15 feet from the nail. "Wrath, you understand that you're sworn to secrecy and may be comfortably imprisoned once you get into our base, right? You're not a night enthusiast. But I'm not sure you're a friend of the pawn shop." "Oh, I'm dangerous and mad," Wrath said. "I understand. But do give me biscuits once I'm settled, won't you?" I nodded, absent-minded. The 4 of us split up, walked carefully through the space, and checked for hiding night enthusiasts. When we regrouped, Scotland shook her head. "Nobody," she said. "You're being paranoid, Maud," Octavia said. "Let's just get down there." "All right," I said, nice and loud. "I'll just grab the glove then, and we'll step behind this coat rack for added privacy." I grabbed a peacock feather glove. If a night enthusiast had escaped our notice and was watching, they might think the glove was the murder object. It took a bit of detective work to realize it was the nail, anyway. So, we teleported down there. As we stood in the wooden entrance room, I eyed Wrath to see if he could see the lettering on the wall that said, "Death to all mice." He didn't even blink, didn't look at it. Damn! It was still just me. Why could only I see the lettering? We went downstairs. Rupert appeared and immediately took charge of Wrath in his blustery way. Wrath was promised biscuits and a plush prison cell, which he agreed to cheerfully. I think he was just thrilled at being away from the Whiskelets. I retreated into my room. I am bone-tired and cold and worried. It's late, diary. Or honestly, I don't know what time it is. I know that I feel like I've been awake for days, if not centuries. Oh, merciful heavens, I just want to sleep for the rest of my life. All right, I'm getting whiny. No one wants a whiny Maud. Well, except for me. I love whining. But I bid you farewell. I will write again soon. October 17th, 1921. Aha. Oh, diary. Oh, God. I woke up in my bed and everything felt normal. I brushed my teeth, got dressed, and went to the kitchen. When I got there, Scotland was on the floor with her hands tied behind her back. She had a gag in. She looked at me with wild eyes, and my stomach thrummed with terror. I stumbled backwards into the living room, and 16 people from the pawn shop, including Mr. McGillicuddy, were bound and gagged. In the hallway, I heard voices. "That's 2 more. This place has too many rooms. It's like hunting prairie dogs." I jumped into a closet as fast as I could. My breath hot and quick, I crouched down and peered through the keyhole. 2 men in pinstriped suits, with purple ties, dragged Rupert and a woman named Susan into the living room. The night enthusiasts. They'd found us. We hope you've enjoyed Season 3, Episode 9, The Plague Mask Speaks, of McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawn Shop. McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawn Shop is written and performed by Minerva Sweeney Wren, all rights reserved. Ad. Very annoying ad. Such a terribly annoying ad, really. Ad. Hang on. Are you hearing an annoying advertisement right now? You are not. Do you know why? Because this podcast is free and always will be. This podcast is advertisement free and always will be. However, there is a unique opportunity awaiting you if you wish to support this podcast and become a $1 patron. Minerva Sweeney Wren hopes to start a second podcast called The Dark and Decrepit Planet of Spin, where instead of merely listening each week, you will solve real puzzles and make real choices that determine the outcome of the tale. Think of it as an enormous collaborative storytelling adventure. For more information, please go to patreon.com/SweeneyWren. Please consider sharing this podcast with your friends, a post on the audio drama subreddit, an in-person recommendation, or a social media share do more to market this audio drama than anything Minerva Sweeney Wren can do on her own. She relies on you. McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawn Shop will continue with Season 3, Episode 10. Too many night enthusiasts spoil the kitchen.